Art Ultra Nation. My name is Reed Nelson. This is Izzy Alkafas. This is This Week in Rec, Elite 8 edition. Avengers, Rebels, Goodfellas, Off Constantly, our Final Four teams. How we got there, we will recap right now. First game we'll talk about was the late game, 56-53. Avengers take down the Warriors in overtime. First things first, Warriors had the lead a majority of the game. We're in control for most of it, but the Avengers never really went away. Before we get to the dramatics, talk about what led up to these final couple plays.
That's a pretty broad question. I mean, what do you mean what led up to it? Because
Take us through the entire 44-minute game.
Okay, so it started out, they won the tip. No, but they got out early. I think they were up 14 or 15 points early in the first half. We slowly started to trim that lead away, and then we were down 2 at halftime. Second half starts, and it's kind of going back and forth. Then they kind of extend the lead to about 10, I believe, and then we chipped away at that, and then it kind of went back and forth a little bit. And there's a lot of missed free throws in that game at the end, especially on the Avengers side. A lot of missed free throws, a lot of turnovers, a lot of missed layups. The Warriors could have put the Avengers away, but they just could not make that last bucket to extend the lead. And the Avengers donked off a couple big plays just by missing shots. You know, there was Noe drove the lane on one, clear slap, didn't get the call, missed the layup. And then the Warriors came down. Chase misses a layup and then gives the ball right back. And the Avengers held the ball to the last shot and didn't get off a good look. Greg's in and out. That was
so
really
4.5 seconds to go. Derek Batiste inbounding. Almost throws the ball away. But Greg Regenscheid is able to corral it. Gets off a pretty long three. Rattles in and out. I thought it was going in. I thought it was going in on the second part of the rattle, but doesn't. That was a traumatic end to the game. We get to overtime. Only 3 points were scored in overtime. It was miss, defensive stop. Noe dribbles around for a significant amount of time. I thought he wanted to take that shot, and being the assist leader in Ultimate Hoops Nation that he is, he gives it up to Chris Maher. Maher sinks it. 1.3 seconds were put back on the clock. They got off a decent look. Gabe got off a decent look and just wasn't able to make it go. So talk about your strategy going into that final play, the game winner.
Well, we wanted to space the floor, and we eventually wanted to get the ball to Chris and have him kind of win the game for us. Well, didn't play out that way. Jake did a good job taking him out. Noe had the ball, and he basically kind of they did a little bit of pick and roll, a little two-man game. They got Jake kind of went with Noe. There was a little bit of a confusion there on the communication. Chris got a great look and buried the three. So it's when you have two great players like that and a pick comes, at the end of the game, the defense really has to make a decision on, are we switching, are we not? And if they're not on the same page, one of those two guys is going to score that bucket.
Yeah, it was a huge shot by Chris Maher, and he puts the Avengers into the Final Four.
And I will say, as good of a player as Chris is, and as long as I've been playing with him I don't think I can remember him making a game-winning shot or even taking a game-winning shot. I mean, I've been in the league for 4 years, and I would remember. I don't think he's ever been in that opportunity. It's kind of...
Yeah, nothing off the top of my head that I've captured on video.
It's crazy when you think about it.
First game of the night, Rebels actually losing to the Bulls early by 10 at halftime, but their defense takes over in the second half. Ferber, Jansen, DuPont at full strength, just running all up and down the court. Double teaming. Now, at the beginning of the game, 3 refs hurts the Rebels because there's a lot of fouls called on them that were obvious fouls, but they're just not used to having those calls called. Yeah. So they pull away late, win by 10, 64-54. The Bulls only shot 5 of 24 from the three-point line. That sunk him in the end.
Yeah, Mike was sick. Grant had a poor game tonight. Got blocked a bunch of times. Did just look like he didn't have the legs. Maybe too many games this week. Missed the threes that are wide open that he'd bury. I will highlight Stephen Kelsey was a beast.
Yeah, he was
tonight. If he is under control and he's not just crazy running around, He's so damn good at basketball. It's not even funny. His handles are sick. He's got that ball in a string. He was running Dustin in circles, getting to the hoop whenever he wanted. He was pulling back, making threes, playing great defense, picking up steals. He was the reason the Bulls were in that game and up by 10 in that first half. One of the best performances I've seen all season. Then we get into the second half, and he starts the game on the bench. He takes himself out of the game. He had a thigh thing, and I told him right when he came out, I said, that's a mistake. You got to get back in that game. And I love J. Mike, one of the nicest guys, very cool dude. But I'm going to keep it real. He had probably the worst 3 minutes of basketball I've ever seen a player have. He's supposed to be the point guard. He's supposed to get guys involved. He's a leader of that team, and he's a very smart player. He always talks about the right things, but when he got on the court in that second half in replacement of Stephen Kelsey, it almost looked like he tried to replace what Stephen was doing. And he took a three, missed it, got the offensive rebound, put back, missed it. Then they got the ball back, and then he'd get the ball kicked out to him, and then he'd take another bad shot. He took 5 straight shots for the Bulls, and he missed them all, and he had a turnover in that stretch as well. And the Rebels were able to cut the lead from 10, I believe, to 3, and the Bulls had to call timeout, and they lost all momentum. Now, I'm not saying it's J. Mike's fault, not one bit, but for a guy of his talent, he should be a pretty cerebral player. He shouldn't have a stretch where he's getting 5-6 shots and a turnover without, Grant, without Mike, without D'Angelo, without those other guys getting a shot up. So that's kind of my take on it. If the Bulls would have pulled out that game, Stephen Kelsey, that's like an MVP performance. That was a beautiful first half out of that guy tonight.
So the Rebels will play the Avengers. If my memory serves me correctly, they played at Gold Cup against each other.
Who's this?
Rebels Avengers.
Yeah.
And that was the Avengers Gold Cup. That was the last time they played, I believe. Could be wrong. I'll have to look at the almanac when I get home tonight. What do you expect to see with this matchup? Two of UH's oldest franchises, two powerhouses, the 2 and the 3 seed. What do we got?
It's interesting because I think the Avengers have done it this season with a lot of teamwork, something that the Rebels usually do it with. But the Rebels have added a lot of offensive talent, and I think offensively they might be more talented than the Avengers. Maybe not. It's close, but the edge definitely goes to the Rebels on their defensive end. It's going to come down to effort. We know that the 2 and the 3 seed, they've both been there, done that. They've played each other. They've won championships. Rebels championships, Avengers championship. And I don't think the moment's going to be too big for either of them. Obviously it won't. And both teams are going to want to win for that, the leg up. No, neither team wants to lose. The Avengers definitely don't want to lose the Rebels, and the Rebels don't want to lose the Avengers. So effort will not be an issue, I don't think, in that game. And it does not matter what the score is, 35 minutes into that game. The game's going to come down to the last 10 minutes.
So a couple of dynamics I want to talk about later. If the Rebels end up having to potentially face off constantly in the finals, let's say off constantly wins that first game, and then the Rebels they'd be playing to play each other. We'll talk about that in a second. But that'll be an interesting thing because that plays, and I said this before, that plays in their head. There's 3 crossover players. So Avengers Rebels have no crossover players. So we won't talk about crossover players. We'll get to the Goodfellas off constantly crossover players in a bit, and the rumors we're hearing, and then the potential for crossover players in the championship. So UANO actually had, I thought, they lost 77-67, but they looked great. They looked like they belonged here tonight. They did. They absolutely looked like a team that belonged here. That was without Trevor. He dressed but did not play. This is a team that I think got a great deal of momentum tonight moving into next season. And I'm excited to see that squad progress. But the Goodfellas just too big for them. They were down 4. UANO was down 4 with about 3 minutes left. There was a timeout call by the Goodfellas, and then they went on a 7-0 run in like 30 seconds, and it was game over. Goodfellas, just a huge, huge team. Talk about the win for them.
Big win, moving into the Final Four. But now they face, like you said, they have the crossover games. I think I'll highlight one thing. The Goodfellas, if they could have stopped Jeff Smith, that game would have been a 25-point blowout. Jeff Smith, he made everything win, and he made his three. I think he was 1 for 2 from deep. I think he was 9 for 10 or 8 for 9 from the field. The guy could not miss. Chase couldn't guard him. Garland, nobody can guard him. And he was making his, Jeff Smith does not have a follow through. It's not existing.
He's got the ugliest shot in Ultimate Hoops.
That's debatable, but it goes in.
It's top 3.
It's top 3. I'll give you his top 3, but it's ugly because he shoots and he flicks it. He doesn't actually follow through, so that's why it looks bad. But he obviously has that shot down, and it looks so bad, and it looks like it should never go in, and everybody's surprised when it does. But he makes some tough shots, and it's been like this for a couple seasons where he's making these tough shots, and he kept Ueno in that game for the duration of it. Very impressive performance by him. But the Goodfellas, like you said, just too big, too good.
Antoine Lynch, 17 points, 14 rebounds in their effort. Off constantly. This was also a close game for a majority of it, 5, 10, 15, and then they actually blow them out at the end, 69-48. Curtis Herzberg, 17 points on 8 of 12 shooting. A surprisingly, extremely efficient night for him. No, I shouldn't say surprising, just an extremely efficient night for them. I mean, Off Constantly is also another huge squad. Talk about their win over the Good Thumpers.
They're not that huge. I mean, they're swole. I'd say they're swole.
Swole?
They're swole.
Is that a word?
Swole. It's hood. Bryant knows the hood, the lingo. Most of the guys in this league know the hood lingo. You white guys from Elbow Lake, right?
Yes.
You know what swole is.
I've never heard the term swole before.
You got to be the only one. But anyway, they're swole. Like, they're not big, but they're swole. You never heard swole?
They're strong, is what you're trying to say. They're not tall,
like
but they're
swollen.
strong.
It's like swollen.
Yeah, I've heard swollen. Okay. I know what swollen means.
It's hood lingo. Come on now. You got to be on the streets. Streets of New Hope, Eden Prairie. But, the Sock Thumpers, they need a bench. They needed Zach Armstrong came in, and he just could not make a bucket. And I've watched Zach quite a few times, and I've never seen the guy make a three-pointer. But he keeps on taking them. However, he's a pretty good defender.
Yeah, he played very well defense tonight because he was matched up against huge guys.
He plays really good.
Swole guys.
Swole guys. He took the swole guys, but he plays really good defense. He hustles his ass off. He should be more of a Pinkett type. Don't shoot the damn ball. Just get the ball to the guys that can shoot. I don't care how open you are. Just get the ball to the right guys and play your role. Play defense, hustle, crash boards, do what Pinkett does. But the Sock Thumpers, Bittner got in foul trouble. He had to play Ole defense. They just didn't have enough. They just didn't have enough firepower to stick with Off Constantly. And Bennett was miserable from deep. He could not buy a bucket. Rablin was miserable from deep. If they make 2 or 3 or 4 of those three-pointers throughout the course of the game, momentum changes, and the finish of that game is not 20 points. There's a lot of big momentum threes that Bennett in particular missed that they needed to have drop. And Off constantly took advantage. They're such a good team. Every single guy in their team can score. And Pinkett's that glue guy. You love having a guy like Pinkett to come in there and do the dirty work. And Kurt tonight played really well, but all his buckets were, he was just mismatches and just overpowering people, crashing the glass. Kurt Manblow, he's a tough cookie down low for sure.
So the 1 seed versus the 5 seed, Garland Sanchez, Ryan Samuelson. Rumor is that Garland will play for Off Constantly. Ryan will play for the Goodfellas. Is that what you've heard as well through the grapevine, or just through me, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, you're a horrible source, but
I was right about Trevor.
You were, but he dressed. He teased us. I mean, I thought he was going to give us a couple minutes,
but I was right.
But you were right. I think I overheard Carlin saying that he is going to play with
Off constantly.
off constantly, and Ryan's going to play with the Goodfellas. I think the Goodfellas deserve it more. They got robbed last season. I'd really like to see them come in there and not blow the Final Four like they did last season, and potentially win the championship and give you, Reed Nelson, a new winner.
9 straight.
So yeah, you are rooting for Off Constantly and the Goodfellas. So whoever wins that game, you want to win the championship.
I want a game-winning 3. Toe on the line. Ref calls it a 3. It's actually a 2. Yeah, never mind.
The drama. Okay.
The drama. So let me make this point. The opening game will be 1 seed, 5 seed. When we have a jumbled mess like this. So this is kind of how it goes, UH Nation. You can make a request, and we will do our best to adhere to said request. But in this case, we've had a lot of requests, so we have to go with what we know. And in this case, when you have the crossover players, you give the benefit of the doubt to the 1 seed. They didn't get their choice. Like, if they didn't have necessarily crossover players, then we wouldn't have necessarily said, hey, they may have played late. But in this case, they'll play early. Now, if Off Constantly wins that first game, that is a huge, huge negative for the Rebels. Huge negative. Because it is a mental thing that Pat and Dustin and Ryan don't want to have to make that choice. I'm not saying they're going to throw the game. That's not what I'm saying. But the brain, it's a powerful thing. And I'm just saying it'll hurt the Rebels. Maybe a point, maybe 2 points. It'll hurt them a little bit.
No, I don't think so. Here's why. Pat, Jansen, and DuPont probably have like a Rebels doll that they
Good point.
that they sleep with at night. That's how much they love the Rebels. You know, they kiss him. Joe Vegas, I love you so. And then they cuddle with Joe, their little Joe doll, and they love each other. I mean, they love playing with each other. I mean, if any team wants to assemble a squad and have them dedicate themselves to a league, to a team, it's the Rebels. They will not. I don't care, subconsciously or not. They will bring it.
You're absolutely right. And let me just say I was wrong. If it were reversed and it were Rebels Off Constantly, then it would be a huge thing. But you're right. They're so rebels all the time that maybe it's hurtful to have team.
Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe they're going to want to conserve energy. I can see them subconsciously conserving energy for that game in order to give 100% for the Rebels. I can honestly see that.
Yeah, I don't know if they know the term conserve energy though in that group. Maybe.
Yeah, Dustin. We gotta, if we did like some sort of like testing, we gotta test Dustin for some sort of like I don't know. He must pound like 6 5-hour energies or something. He's on like 30-hour energy with all those. Right?
He's a firecracker.
If you took 5-hour energies, would you have 25 hours of energy?
I don't think so. So, okay. So next week, Rebels v Avengers, Off Constantly v Goodfellas. Again, we'll talk about this a little bit next week. All 4 teams are huge. They're big. You got to be big in this league. They're very swole. But you have to have size, and not just one guy. You've got to have multiple guys. I mean, like Regenscheid, it's a perfect example. He's a 3, or he could be a 4 or a 3, or hell, he could be a 2. Yeah. And he's like 6'4", 230. He's as big as Garland, and hell, he's as big as Lynch right now because Lynch has dropped some weight.
But Greg is 240, not 240.
I don't know.
You know what I mean? He's not 240. He's 240.
I don't know. Okay, so next week, Final Four games will be in Bloomington. Championship games will also be in Bloomington. So little change. Championship Thursday night will be in Bloomington South. Final Four games will also be in Bloomington on Wednesday. We will see you Wednesday night.